Evolution in Divine Love is an invitation to reimagine everything from the place where it all begins and where it all returns. Love.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Evolution in Divine Love podcast. Today, we'll be speaking about love's symphony of infinite renewal. And Swami is joining us today from Austria still. Welcome, Maharaj.
Greetings from Austria with a very colorful background here.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. So this was such a beautiful section, and you really highlight speak about the role of obstacles and challenges in relation to renewal, and almost being like a mechanism even, or an intrinsic part of renewal is being an obstacle or challenge. So I'm wondering if you could just say a few words about the relationship that you see between obstacles, challenges, and the becoming, that how that might be a part of becomingness.
I would say originally comes from one of these definitions that Rupa Goswami gives in Ujjwal Nilamani about prem or love, and he says basically, first he defines prem as ever fresh, ever new, and in that context, never diminishing, as we say, no opposite, never diminishing, but becoming more of what it already is. So never diminishing even when there are reasons for it to diminish, like implying, again, obstacles. Obstacles get in the way, but they do not get in the way. They end up being like devoured by love, and love becomes strengthened by the obstacles. No? So it's another way of speaking, of course, in two ways. One of the strength of love, consuming everything on its path and making it part of its own sacred equation. Like we will say, love moves like a snake in a crooked way, and it's encompassing and embracing everything on its way and making it part of the love equation. Even expressions that, if we don't have love, may sound like contradictory to love. Again, like anger or envy or fear. In our tradition, all that's our expressions also of love. They have been devoured and integrated by love. But also, again, we may not be there yet in that level of love that whatever comes on its way just makes it part of a higher synthesis. But also the idea of obstacles, even if when we don't see that, to know that obstacles in principle, in potential, in the bigger picture of love, are there to kindle the fire of further love, of further longing. Even if we still fail miserably, so to say, in seeing that way, obstacles ultimately are not obstacles. No? If an obstacle in principle can enhance love, then they are not obstacles at all. No? Again, still I may be far away from that realization because of a lack of love, but it's good to know, at least in principle, the more love I embrace, I open up to, the more obstacles stop being obstacles. No? So in other words, obstacles are my lack of love. The actual obstacle is my lack of love. Because when there is love, even obstacles nourish love. So our kindlers are not obstacles anymore. So ultimately, what's the actual obstacle? My lack of love that does not allow me to see everything as a potential fuel for the fire, for the sacrifice, right? For the swaha. So again, in principle, at least to know that is very, at least important for me. If obstacles can enhance love, they are not obstacles at all. The real barrier is our own resistance to love, because ultimately everything can become fuel for deeper harmony, right?
Yeah, that's amazing, and I really appreciate the relationship. I kind of see like you know, how we have resistance training, like if you want to build your physical strength, there has to be something to push against. And you give the example also of how a lion who confronts elephants.
That's not me. That's Panachagavarti Thakur and put copyrights to the right direction, please. Sorry.
But that's how the lion gets, the only way a lion can experience and express its courage is coming up against an obstacle. So it's like obstacles, like you said, it's not a way to stop something. It's a way to actually be able to experience and to expand something that's already there. How would the lion know it was courageous unless it had something to oppose its own courage?
Yeah, and after defeating the elephant, as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in Prem Samput, the lion feeds on the elephant. No, like to make the point of you gain new strength and nourishment through the obstacle. The elephant was the obstacle and eventually became food. So in principle, what we see as an obstacle is a potential banquet, a potential feast, if we are willing to be courageous, which is synonymous with vulnerable. Right? Let's not forget the connection between vulnerability and courage. So, yeah.
When you say like the only obstacle is our lack of love, and also I think you say obstacle is we ourselves, and if we step out of the way, like, you know, we can see, you know, for what it is, something like that. So when you say that stepping out of the way, what does it look like really in practical life?
If I may ask, what does it look like too?
You know, when you talk about there's no obstacle for love, like the only obstacle is we ourselves, you know. So yeah, you say that, you know, if we step out, then we can, like, you know, see the like full expression of love or something like that. So I was wondering, like, what does it look like, you know, stepping out? It's kind of like allowing, just going with the process or something like that.
Yeah, as I say, the only obstacle is our own resistance. So love is an invitation, and we can accept it or not. And of course, accepting it entails being transformed by that invitation and letting go of what gets in the way of that from inside of us. And many times we are terrified about that, right? Like we were talking today, these days here, sharing this common idea, though counterintuitive for many, that many times what we fear the most is our brightest potential. Many times, why? Because we have lived our lives for a long time through a narrative of I'm not enough. So if suddenly I can have a glimpse, or I'm told about my brightest potential in love, in order to actualize and embrace that, I need to let go of all those false stories that have been defining me from time immemorial. And I'm so familiar with those stories, they have defined me, they have given me an identity, quote unquote, though a false one. So letting them go it may feel terrifying. Even if the other option is my brightest potential, which is still unknown on some level. So yeah, I mean, getting out of the way to allow love to do their part, so to say, implies a gradual process of letting go of false stories that have defined us for eons, false narratives that anartha-nivriti, what we may call in our tradition, right? Getting rid of false narratives, false values, false beliefs about ourselves, about the nature of love, about anything and everything. So it's a daily exercise to pay attention to which form of love am I offering resistance today. Let's see. Right, like not to go neurotic about it, but just to be open enough to acknowledge probably there is some resistance to something on some level. So what's the daily resistance? What's the resistance of the day? And praying and being open and working on that. And that will be like getting out of the way to allow love to actually do its work. Yeah. Surrender. So now we speak about surrendering. Surrendering, sarvopadi vinigmuktam, releasing, letting go false designations, false narratives, false self-definitions. There's so many layers of that. In the face of love, all that becomes more and more evident, because love is such a light that shows everything else for what it is. So the closer we get to love, the more light will be shed on that which is an absence of love. And there are so many gross but also very subtle corners in our inner landscape that need to be exposed and gradually released. Again, it's a lifetime project and maybe more than that. So
yeah, wow, that's really helpful. That makes me understand better how then the obstacle can actually, like, help. It's not really an obstacle, and it doesn't like diminish love. It actually helps us grow and experience more love.
yeah. And many times again, what we may deem an obstacle externally, a particular situation, it's actually a particular situation that it's triggering us, and it's triggering something in us internally. And that thing that is triggered is the actual obstacle. So what we project at the external obstacle is just like a kindler, something that's like pointing to what's triggered inside of us, which is the actual obstacle. But by projection, we may just ascribe the obstacle-ness to external happenings, but they're just like mirrors or reminders or triggers, whatever word we want to use, of what remains unresolved in us. And in that sense, it's friendly. No, the so-called obstacle is a reminder of you are still triggered with that. Why you're getting triggered? What's behind the trigger? What needs to be solved? What's the actual obstacle, right? So it's a life of deep responsibility and of turning inward toward. Okay, obstacles are not outside. In principle, Srila Maharaj will say the environment is friendly. In that sense, even what we perceive as not friendly, as obstacle, still is telling something about our inner landscape by what they need to address there. So there has to be deep integrity to keep that stance and learn the lesson at every moment.
And why also we don't need to fear obstacles or to fear conflict even, because that's actually the point at which we can grow into it, strengthen these things, heal, and become stronger in the process. It's interesting too, the language that you use, like in this section, we can say that Krishna feels that, or that love feels like it's not enough. We need to do more. And also how I was thinking how absence, and you mentioned absence seems to be like the ultimate opposition. So there's also the, that has its form here in like a distorted form, and it has its pure and perfect form of that also. How the not enough is simply because something has expanded, and it's out of fullness that there feels that there's not enough. And also how the absence is an opposition for us here, but that also speaks about the separation that is experienced in divine love, how that the feelings of separation also is like an absence that becomes the opposition to the obstacle. I mean, to confront. So it's interesting how it's like very, very similar dynamics in divine love, and then how it's experienced broken form for most of us here, but it has its original beautiful form also.
Separation, viyoga in Sanskrit can mean vishesha rupena yoga, very special type of union, right? So yeah, separation is not the opposite of union, is special form of union. So love grows not despite separation, but through separation. And the same over here with brokenness and woundedness and obstacles. Those are not opposite to love. Again, there is no opposition to love, but things that with proper trained eye can become a unique expression of it, and a unique window of opportunity for us to access love, which of course, by the way, is omnipresent, but it may be more accessible for our capacity and perception through those many times difficult moments, obstacle-like moments. So
Yeah, I really like how you linked that to feeling lost and distant in our journey. That was so relatable for me, because oftentimes I go through these phases of like, okay, I feel like God's presence and reciprocation and all of that, and then I go through a period of like feeling lost and distant, like he's absent or something like that. And I really like that you link that to union and separation, how this phase of feeling lost and distant is really important. Actually, it's essential for our growth and like going deeper. And when we like, find God, like you put it in quotes, find God, it's the renewed expression. It's going to be like more richer and deeper. So like this to me is just like, it is a paradigm shift, because oftentimes we have this, I mean, personally, like I struggle when I go through this, like, dark, lost periods. It's like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Like, why am I not feeling God's presence or something like that? But reading this, it's like it's a hope-giving statement, like now I don't need to feel bad about it, knowing, especially in our tradition, in like, in Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, isn't love and separation like worshipped more than love and union, like Vipralambha. So I was thinking then we can also like, when we go through, I mean, although it's not the same there, but in our, like where we are, this is how we experience it. So we don't need to like look down on it or feel less. Instead, see that also as sacred and love the process.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. And staying with that absence, staying with that uncertainty, and also knowing that, as we were also talking these days, and like Richard will say, right, the last experience of God is usually the greatest obstacle to the next experience of God. So many times we may feel God absent, not because he's absent, but just because he's ever new and ever fresh. So we are in the process of rediscovering him. So we are figuring out who Krishna has become now for me, so to say. And that may take some time, and that can feel like absence or separation or this or that, right? So it's good to understand that with another set of concepts or words. No, actually, I'm in the process of rediscovering the latest updated version of the divine in my life. And that may feel like absence, separation, bewilderment, what's going on. But if I'm sincere, I have to have that foundational trust and hope that the sweet absolute is there, and in the process of further disclosure. But that takes some time, right? That takes some time. So
And all of this, everything that you've been speaking of, is in the context of love's being renewed, always ever fresh, and a completely like a different experience at every moment. So much so that the last experience is a distant past. There's something new and fresh right in front. They don't even recognize, and we don't even recognize what's actually here.
Yeah, like the idea of anurag that we include in the chapter, that is falling in love again and again, as if for the first time. So again, that doesn't in one sense make sense for the usual way we have of thinking things. But that's how love works. Love does not repeat, it renews. And that's why we can say only so far about love. I mean, there's a point with even what we're talking now, it's like, okay, maybe we have to go into silence now because we have reached the peak of our verbal capacities in trying to articulate something approximately to what love actually is. And in that context, I'd like to share one poem that I've reading this day from Meister Eckhart. He's a Christian mystic. One brief section, just 3 lines. Probably that will be a good closing to what our episode today. In terms of, the challenging of putting love into words, so to say, when we are especially speaking about love in its ever newness and expansiveness. So in the words of Daniel Ladinsky, Meister Eckhart says, all language has taken an oath to fail to describe him. No? Him, God, love. Any attempt to do so is the height of arrogance and will always declare some kind of war. So we don't want to engage in war. We don't want to indulge in arrogance. So very humbly, we'll be putting this sharing to rest today. So thank you so much for the invitation.
So welcome to our second part of the podcast. We are very happy to introduce to you Rati Rupa. She is joining us from New Zealand, and we'll be further discussing the section on love's symphony of infinite renewal. So thank you for joining us today, Rati.
Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I look forward to discussing with you.
Yeah, me as well. I really appreciated our TED talk that we had. So looking forward to this.
Yeah, likewise.
So just to begin our discussion here today, I know that Ayurveda for you is something that you're deeply interested in, and you've looked into it, and you have studied it, and you use it in your own practice. And I'm wondering, in this section, it's described this like how obstacles are actually beneficial, and how after an obstacle might come on our path, but by addressing the obstacle, we actually develop, we can use that to our benefit, and it actually creates a newness and a more of an aliveness. So I'm kind of wondering if you see that pattern also on the physical level with the body, with your experience in Ayurveda, if there's, which speaks about aliveness, Ayurveda. So I'm wondering if you also see that any kind of obstacle that comes along as far as our physical well-being, if by addressing that, you see that there is like a renewal of aliveness after that.
Yeah, absolutely do. Yeah, and not just in people I've worked with, because I work doing Ayurvedic practitioner work, so people bringing me health issues or just wanting general improved wellness. But also personally, I think this is part of the human experience very much, that we come up against an obstacle, and with the right perspective and assistance, we can work our way through that and then experience the renewal on the other side. And within the healing realm, I would say that often the obstacle is quite unseen, and that often people come into a health consultation, very commonly they'll have a narrative about what's going on, and this is the reason why I'm sick, and please can you validate it for me? So I'm sick, I think it's because I drink 2 cups of coffee before my breakfast every morning, and can you please tell me to stop drinking those 2 cups of coffee? And I feel, actually I had this not very long ago. Or it can be so many things, and sometimes it's true, and this is not me rubbishing people's self-awareness, because that's a massive part to play, and especially when we're working with another person, it's about them, really, and their awareness is paramount to them getting well. But sometimes it's the unseen obstacle which is really what matters, and to address that can be quite challenging. And then if we bring that into our own realm, this is often when we do really well with having the benefit of very loving and affectionate association as devotees, somebody who can lovingly just remark or help us to see some things that might remain unseen to us, that are remaining as obstacles. And then we can, and often it's not like an obstacle course where you go over the obstacle and then you're on the other side and then you continue running. My experience with obstacles, it's more like chipping away at a mine, and with a pickaxe, and it can take years sometimes just to undo one single obstacle, or even lifetimes even. So that's it. But my note, when I've observed people with it on a healing journey, as soon as they get a touch of what that obstacle is, and they get some incentive and inspiration to work on that, or they kind of have that moment of epiphany, oh, that's where I am. All of a sudden, they've got all this leverage and enthusiasm and inspiration, and then it's quite automated. They need very little assistance, and the body knows what to do for itself. The person gets on this very positive, uplifting spiral, and it's self-reinforcing. It can pushes itself forward. So there are a lot of parallels there with this idea of the evolution of divine love as well, and our desire to gain more and more of that, and how the obstacles actually become like the fuel to push us further and inspire us more and more. So it's a really, really nice point that Maharaj makes in the book.
Yeah, I appreciate you using the terminology spiraling upward, that the healing process is a spiraling upward, because that's how love is portrayed, as a spiraling upward and an expansiveness. So was there something in this section that sparked you?
To spiral me upwards.
Yeah, spiraled you upwards.
Yeah, I got spiraled upwards on several. I got lots of updrifts and over several things. Yeah, that point was nice, because I think it's very, as a human having a human experience, very human experience in my case. It's just very relatable, and that saying, oh, I know what obstacles are. I've had plenty of those and continue to have those. And that I can note, I've seen this pattern of obstacle and refreshment and renewal in my own life, and that actually looking at it from this positive lens, that, oh, actually an obstacle becomes the fuel for growth. And that's something that hopefully we come to know better and better as we progress in our spiritual journey, knowing that actually Krishna really is not a masochist and doesn't really just like to put obstacles in our path to make us suffer, but actually they are for this, and that we get this refreshed enthusiasm as a result of it, or a different perspective or something like that. So that's one thing that's given me yeah, a lot of food for thought on that point. Yeah.
I really like what you said about obstacle earlier, that it's not something to jump over, but you work through it. You mentioned something like taking a pickaxe or something, but the image that I got was it's like a stone and you're sculpting. So you have the
Oh, that's
obstacle
lovely.
and you sculpt something beautiful out of it. And you don't like push it away or jump over. And it's kind of like you're given lemon and you make lemonade. You know?
Perfect.
So you're
Yeah,
given
perfect. I love that.
a stone as an obstacle, you sculpt something beautiful out of it that, you know, it fits in this analogy. It's similar to the kintsugi art, right? Like you have the cracks and you fill it with gold and there's something beautiful, like something new. So
Yeah,
here
yeah.
you have like the stone you sculpt and there's a new beautiful sculpture.
What a lovely point, because instead of being something, the obstacle being something to discard and get rid of and turn our back to and walk forward from, yeah, that we actually can integrate it into our life somehow. That's a really nice point.
Yeah. And the other thing you were saying that like when there is like for the physical, you know, like if when there is a physical disease or like in an obstacle in that sense, then when you provide some help, like, you know, like a good association, someone to like, you know, hold space and like, yes, show you where the obstacle is. And, you know, once the healing starts, then the body starts healing itself. You know, it's not so much that you have, it's an external thing you put, the body has the healing capacity and it does the thing. It is also like I was like I saw a parallel with how Maharaj mentions, like, you know, us stepping out of the way, you know, then we can see like how love unfolds, you know, just noticing all the things that there is underneath that needs to be like, you know, worked on, the wounds and all of that. Yeah, so yeah, the parallel between the physical and emotional.
Yeah, let it unfold. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
something in the healing sphere I've been looking into a bit more lately, or learning a bit more about, is sort of the innate intelligence of the body, and that for sometimes, especially in the healing realm, it needs a little bit of prompting. There may be a stuck survival response, or the homeostatic balance is a little bit off, or something has kind of, the pattern has shifted a bit and needs to be recorrected. But once we're on that line, then we're self-correcting beings, and we're designed for evolution and love and these things, and that sometimes just a little bit of tweaking to come back on the path is necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a slow process, isn't it? Like, especially in Ayurveda, like, I mean, from my experience, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. Ayurveda is a very slow healing journey, whereas in English, allopathic medicine is something that like you want quick relief. Like you take something, okay, in a day you're okay, you know, like day or two. But Ayurveda is usually a long course, and you don't know whether it's working or not, and you know, it's a gradual process like that. So it seems to me
Sometimes sorry, carry on.
No, yeah, I was just saying, yeah, it seems to me that that slow, gradual process, being patient, is the natural way of going about things, you know. Yeah, what do you
And
think?
I think the patience, like you say, goes along with this unfolding, right? You have to, it will come at its own sweet time and its own sweet will. That's allowing things to unfold, and they will go in that direction, and we can use either health or the evolution of loving. Both of those, they have this. Well, there's one example I'm trying to remember now in the book, but it's like, this what was this one? This growing stronger like a lion nourished by courage in the opposition of elephants, this sort of thing. But but there is another example. I could have a look at it, but I'll stay connected here. But yeah, that it will always track that path of upward moving and moving forward and progressing. So we don't kind of have to worry about that too much. Maybe just need to have a little bit of support to keep that track running, right? Yeah. I was also just thinking too, you were saying about the immediate fix and the long-term fix too, and that's a very real reality. I have to remind my children, they're teenagers, but they want something that acts fast, and often I'll give them some herbs, and I have to, every time they take the dose of herbs, I tell them, this is not like a painkiller, and you won't feel better straight away. In fact, I tell most of my clients that too. A lot of herbs and these things, they take a few weeks to have effect before you can actually note the difference. And yeah, that patience in the process, patience in the unfolding, having that trust and the faith that things will do what they are designed to do, actually. Yeah.
I think that's just an amazing thing to be able to observe how everything moves towards a wholeness. There's just the natural flow of things is to move toward a healing, to move toward a wholeness, and how this is the replication of reality on the deepest sense, since everything is everything is God, and God is love. So everything is love. Everything is expanding and moving in this pattern of renewal towards a wholeness, where there's a separation and a union, and the dance between those two, and how we can see it on so many levels. Just like Swami said, it's like, a lot of times it's just about us getting out of the way and allowing the natural process to occur, and how, a lot of the times we are our own obstacles in a way. It's, the things, resistance, or perhaps a lack of trust. And earlier in Evolution and Divine Love, it mentions how we might think that we have a lot of problems or obstacles, but tracing them all back, it's actually it's a lack of love that we're experiencing, that just shows up in different ways. So
and that being the only real obstacle is what. Yeah, right. That this idea of this ever forward moving progress, because that's really what this section of this chapter is about, this infinite renewal and this forward push and boundless movement forward. But it makes me think a little bit because of the concept of entropy, which is that the world is in a state of ever increasing chaos and fragmentation and descending into disorder, basically. And for quite some time, some years ago, I sat with that idea and just wanted to see how that really showed up in life, in my life especially. And as a mother and a wife, a lot of my life is about housework. And I felt, I'll tie this into the point too here, but housework is, you really feel it as the opposite of what we're talking about, right? Is that it's like you pull everything up and then it descends, and the kids come in and they wear all the clothes you've just cleaned and dried and folded and put away, and you just wash the dishes, and then they eat, and then you cook and you eat, and then it's all, the mess again. And I have a particular habit. I always clean the kitchen before I start cooking, and then I don't get the window where it's clean for a good period of time, right? So you miss out on that feeling that I've got order, relative order. But I've realized that was actually a really unfortunate perspective to be looking from. And I felt my conclusion after sitting with that idea for some time was it was mostly a matter of perspective. And yes, you could look at it like everything is descending into chaos repeatedly over and over again. But you can also look at it in the other direction as well. It's like maybe in this point that we're making obstacle and renewal. And in our case, I mean, not so many people would be, yes, give me more housework and more dishes to but in one sense there is a rhythm about even housework, and this could, you know, fall into anybody's daily life. Daily life has this sort of routineness to it where we do something, we have to come back and do it the next day and the next day and the next day. And it can feel quite like, oh, hold on, I did this yesterday. Why don't I do have to do this every day, especially when you're just becoming an adult, right? And you have that realization of seeing my children dawning on that point of time. But realizing, no, this is actually an opportunity every day of refreshment, of checking in again, of renewing. And in our case, it can be like renewing a commitment. It could be like, I might do this a little bit differently today, or I might just change my perspective. Instead of looking at this as just a continual descent into chaos, that actually this is just like this cycle of life that is actually, in one sense, I find it a little bit comforting. In one sense, it gives us this motion, even though it seems like the same thing, but this forward movement. What do you think about that idea?
I mean, I very much relate to the housework scenario you're saying, although I don't have kids, so it is probably less work.
Yeah.
Just one kid,
It's still there,
husband.
though. It's still there. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, it's never the same. You know, that's what we're talking about also. Like everything is evolving. So even if we are cleaning up each day, so today's cleaning up is not the same as yesterday's cleaning up. It's always like something deeper in it. Oftentimes, like we don't notice, you know, because it's the same thing. But I think that's the whole thing about being present. When we are present, then we can notice what is different today, how do we feel, and like, you know, everything that's happening in the moment and how it is going deeper. So I think when we are present, we probably can enjoy that too, you know, and not feel like we are repeating the same thing.
And looking at it from a point of view of some sort of ongoing punishment, but actually it's opportunity on a daily basis to renew. And like you say, is it's not to be present and to be aware of what's going on and to use that opportunity, because I mean, it's like doing japa on a daily basis. You get this ability to compare and look at your mind through this lens of a healthy kind of comparison, not a negative sort of comparison, but, oh, look, I can see my mind and I can see what today compared with yesterday, how different that is. And what's different? Oh, it's my state of mind somehow or other. And I think that kind of background routine can help to show us that our level of presence and general state of consciousness.
This reminds me of the line where Maharaj says in this section, when we say, like, I love you dearly, like it's already now, the dear love has become less compared to what it is a bit later, or what it is going to be in the future, you know? So it's like, when we look back, we see like, oh, we haven't loved so much as we can love now. And oftentimes we can also then think like, oh, we didn't love at all or whatever, but there was something, I think. And then we may feel that always, like maybe a year from now, we could look back and say like, oh, we didn't love at all. Like, you know, something like that.
That one, I had to sit with that idea for quite some time to let that sink in. Actually, I think the idea of saying I love you, and as if you're solidifying in that moment of time, right? That here I've taken a screenshot of our love at this very moment, and this is what love is, defined with clear outline, and it can look no different to that. And yeah, I like that point. I think that's worth sitting and meditating on for some time, how we do that. Define things and don't allow them to grow and change and shapeshift over time.
Yeah, there's a fixed maximum to that, and to know that built into everything as it is right now is a new way of being. And I love what you brought in about presence, Swetadweep, because it's, we think of things as routine as being like monotonous, like, oh, here it goes again. But it's what it provides a consistency, I think is a good word that you were kind of thinking, where something stays the same, where there's a consistency. And that consistency allows us to go into more of what is actually changing, what is actually evolving. Because if everything is evolving all at the same time, it would be hard to see where we actually are standing.
Yeah, it's great point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't have a reference point or a marker point or the stationary background on which to see the moving parts.
Yeah. So you can think also, like, even all the way up to Leela, there are certain things that stay the same, certain things that happen, the time of day. But so that in that framework of consistency, there's so much change can be experienced.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, even on this point of housework and home duties, I mean, that's still going on there in Goloka Vrindavan, that they are certainly doing their household duties and on a very routine basis, right? But they're not thinking in terms of entropy at all, thinking quite the opposite.
And as far as entropy goes, I've thought about this also, and I think we might have discussed it a long time ago, Swetadweep and myself and John, because the cycles go towards Kali Yuga, where we tend to think that things are declining, but we have to, if we know that love is evolving, so we have to see how those two things correspond, and how actually, like, how love, us moving towards love, evolving toward love, is actually facilitated by a decline in things around us. Like when there's suffering, there is more of a tendency to to drop those things that aren't really vital, our our false shelters, or the things that we place our sense of self in. And when there's a crisis, or some kind of suffering, it's when those things fall away that aren't supportive, that aren't really our self, and we actually get to expand towards love. So I think of always Viktor Frankl comes to mind, where like the deplorable conditions that he was in, but it led to a greater experience, an expansion, and a boundlessness of love in a very constricted external environment. So even though Kali Yuga might be coming more, as it's described, just as things become more and more constricted, it actually allows for a turning of our attention, of our awareness, of the ability of things to fall away that don't actually support the evolution of
Wow, what an
love.
evolutionary idea this is, even. This is brilliant. And it makes me think of this idea that you're bringing up, just how dualistic the mind can be in terms of good and bad, and that Kali Yuga is bad. It's the shortest and the worst of the 4 ages, and these entropy is bad, and negative and chaos and disorder, these are all bad things, but that's actually not the point of view of the Lord. That's at all, right? It's all just part of the evolving process of the rolling wheel and the cycle of change and everything like this, and the upward spiral, that kind of thing, right? Very
Well,
nice.
yeah, that's an amazing point. Like I had this image of like, yeah, externally it could feel like contracting, but there's an internal expansion going on. Like, yeah, it seems like now more and more people are waking up to that too, like being aware of what's going internally, that there is even a world inside, so the world inside is starting this expansion. And yeah, like you were saying, externally, like in case of Viktor Frankl, he was in this like, really small, like constricted environment, but like he experienced like boundless expansion of love, and like so much came out of it. So in the same way, like, yeah, we can see the expansion of like our internal world, revealing so much that our external senses haven't shown us in the past.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I also, it came to mind also about, Mahaprabhu, how, the presence of compassion and the presence of this expansiveness and the invitation to enter into compassion that happens in entropy kind of things.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and how the supposed decline actually is bringing forth the greatest gift, the greatest, gift in the form of Mahaprabhu.
Yeah, and what a brilliant actually reflection to make, in that Mahaprabhu chooses Kali Yuga in particular, no other time, and that this is the select time for the expression of the highest form of love. It's quite mind-boggling if you don't look at it from that point of view, right? But wow, it's a beautiful meditation to me.
And it just came now how clearly it's a reciprocal, it's a relationship. It's not just that like, oh, Kali Yuga had its course and it's just going to go like this. But because Mahaprabhu is here, he's bringing a certain energy, a certain focus, a certain energy, if I can just use that term. So that's available to us, and it's alive. It's love. It's alive, and it itself is growing. So that we, in a relationship with that growing love, then we have more to at our disposal to relate with and to reciprocate with. So it's not just like, oh yeah, Kali Yuga was going to unfold and this is how it's happening. But because of Mahaprabhu's presence and our participation in what he brought, in what he's giving, our participation and movement within that, in relationship, is actually evolving love at this moment that never could have ever been at any other time. It's something completely new that God himself is experiencing right now in this Kali Yuga. There's never been a time like this before, because of the newness and the freshness of reality. itself, and we get to participate in bringing about something new that has never been before. The way that we get to hold and respond to love right now in this moment, it hasn't, that opportunity has never been there before. So
Yeah, it seems like Kali Yuga is the perfect age for, I mean, it's easier to let our guard down compared to, like, you know, what we know of the previous ages, because then people were pious and they were able to, like, you know, focus for hours, days, years. We hear about like how they've meditated for thousands of years, you know, like it's hard for us, 1,000 seconds, even
Yeah,
5 seconds sometimes.
yeah.
So like for us, okay, we can't hold on to anything. We don't have anything, you know, like we don't have the attention power. We don't have the piety the people had then. What do we have, you know, like nothing, like we are just at your mercy and we just accept the love, like, you know, so we can just let our guard down and accept all the love and mercy that's just freely given. And it's not about the rules and regulations and, like, you know, piety, good or bad, like, you know, the dualities. Like this is a time where we can actually like realize this, it's not about like the dualities. We have to rise above that, beyond that, and like just be open and receive what's given.
Yeah, yeah, all these gems that are afforded in the so-called age of degradation and the, you know, evil and increasing things. I feel like too, when I think about Kali Yuga, or as the way it's depicted sometimes in the cycle of yugas, and especially when you read things like the foretelling of particular avatars, as if things are really set in quite a determined fashion. But what we're spinning on its head and with these various ideas is that actually this is, like Bhakti Rasa is saying, that this is reciprocal, and there's actually the power to set it in a different motion, a direction of motion, by how, and this is the ongoing evolution, is that we can change its direction by participating in it, or changing our perspective on it, and actually turn the whole thing on its head, do away with the dualistic mentality that this is bad. And boy, that, you know, it's a very, I've found that as in my time as devotee, that when the emphasis is like that on the dualistic and especially the negative part of the duality, you miss the opportunities just completely, and this momentum that goes in this ever evolving direction of increasing love and bliss and reciprocation. It's actually very sad. So I'm enjoying this very much. We're spinning Kali Yuga completely on its head. It's actually wonderful and brilliant, and I mean that's the whole idea, right? Isn't it? That's Mahaprabhu's idea. We just had to spin it out a bit to understand it.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that point. Also, Sweta Dweep, that, you know, that one of the specialties of our time right now is for us to be able to realize that we can't buy love, that we can't earn it. You know, like Sweta Dweep said, in other times, even earlier in our life, even in just a few years ago in our trajectory, we might have thought, oh, if I do this, this, and this, then God will love me. But if we're honest and we can see that, oh my gosh, I'm such a mess, that there's really, what can I do? And then we get that beautiful opportunity to realize that love is unconditional, that it's not about what I do or what I don't do. It's simply a matter of being, simply because of who I am, which is a part of God and an entity, a unit, which sounds so impersonal, but I am a person that a beloved of God, and that does not and cannot be earned. And we get that opportunity to experience that by seeing how much of a mess that we are. This, like, yeah, there's nothing that I can do that I could be able to purchase it, and yet it's already coming. So we easily could misunderstand what's happening and think, oh, it's because I get up at this time of day that God is pleased with me, or oh, it's because I do this ritualistic performance that God is responding to me in this way, in a very loving way. But no, I'm a mess. I don't get up at any particular time. I don't have any particular, practice, and still there is boundless love and ever evolving beauty in the world.
It's so interesting, and I'm just having this vision as you're speaking this, that it's like when we say, oh, by my doing, by my sadhana practice, my impeccable sadhana, always meticulously done, everything like this. One just little funny anecdotal thing. There used to be this idea, somehow it floated around in one of the ashrams I lived in, that there was this, if you could meticulously practice your sadhana for 12 years without missing a day, perfection is yours. You've got it in the bag. It was just the 12 years was the
Wow,
magic
I never heard the 12 years thing. Wow.
Me neither.
Yeah, who knows where that came from, but
maybe I would have done
that.
better if I knew there was a time period. Wow.
Yeah. You could think, okay, I've only got 6 years to go. I can do this, can last that long. Yeah, but anyhow, it's humorous and like what we're talking about. But hearing you just put it in those particular words, and from that framing, it's almost like when we look at it like that, we're not in reciprocation with the love that's on offer, right? We're trying to talk to Krishna, and we're trying to have this relationship, basically standing with our back to him whilst the love is flowing freely, and we turn around and we say, I am what I am. This is just me. And then, oh, you're right there all along. I was looking there and there and thinking I was getting it right. That just really painted a very beautiful picture in my mind, the way that you spoke that. So what an amazing practice we have.
Yeah, and it's happening on a daily basis too, right? Like we're looking, okay, this is where I found God yesterday, and today we continue to look in the same place. He's not there. Yeah. And it's like, okay, he's not there, So yeah, I mean, I think Maharaj often quotes Father Richard Rohr that, your oftentimes your last experience of God is the greatest obstacle to your next experience. Yeah, I actually want to take go a little bit back to the Kali Yuga, since I enjoyed the Kali Yuga spin. So I was thinking about
more out of that.
Yeah, a little more. We can indulge a little bit more there. So yeah, I was thinking how Kali Yuga is also often said as age of darkness, like the dark age. And darkness is something we always fear, I mean, not so much now, I'm like coming out of it, but previously with the dualistic view, it was always like light and dark. Dark is to fear and just come out of. And, but now we are learning that there is so much in the darkness. I mean, Krishna himself is sham, like the dark cloud. So we
Oh.
don't need to fear, and we can be here comfortable and see what this darkness has to offer, all the beauty there is in this dark place, because so much growth happens in this dark place. Obviously, it can be scary, which is why like the association of like-minded friends is so helpful, who are on a similar journey, going through similar experiences, and like helping each other, being able to relate and all of that. But yeah, if you think of Kali Yuga in those terms, like the age of darkness, this is a period where we, see like go internal and see what needs healing, and how growth can happen in this darkness, understanding the darkness better, which we always learned or believed to be rejected.
Yeah, what a great point. I think we talked a little bit about that on the last conversation, Bhakti Rasa, with John as well, about this rejection of things that are tamasic, and that, this in darkness, and it all has, according to that mentality, that we have to kick that all out and just invite in sattva only, everything. But it's not going away. Darkness isn't going away, and it's, well, at least in this realm, it's here to stay. We're better off to make friends with it somehow or other, right? Yeah. Or maybe friendship might be the wrong term, but there's the general idea anyhow.
Yeah. Also, because tamasic, like in Ayurveda, then the modes too, right? Like the sattva, rajas, and tamas. Tamas is darkness.
Yeah.
And we often think like, yeah, tamas is bad, we don't want it. But if there is no tamas, how are we going to sleep?
Exactly.
How are we going to stay relaxed?
Exactly. Just relaxation, right? A relaxation requires tamas. You have to, it would be combination sattva and tamas, but those, we've all probably had the experience of super rajas, the too much rajasic tendency, and not being able to switch off the wide but tired state, right? So
yeah, and also
embrace
isn't it
the darkness.
Sorry. Yeah, isn't it like a cyclical thing, as in it's not linear, like there's like sattva, rajas, tamas, and at the end of tamas you come out to sattva. It's not like a linear thing, isn't it like that?
I don't know of something that it describes like that. Yeah.
Yeah, at the deep end of tamas, you can come out of sattva like that. Like it's not a linear thing so much. It's like a circle.
Yeah.
Like I think it kind of like relates to how when you get to like really deep suffering, deep dark place, you could have a realization that you brings you out to sattva.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Like Arjuna and the Gita. Yeah. Yeah.
And that does speak about today's topic also, what you just mentioned, just the nature of going, and then the obstacle, which would be the farthest, when you hit bottom, basically, in a tamasic kind of way, then that when you address that, and again, like you said, I really appreciate it, that our obstacles are not something to jump over, and the other side is already there, but it's the going through it that's actually creating the other side. It's not like, I often think it's not like a tunnel, and I just have to go through the tunnel, and on the other side of the tunnel, good things are already there, and I just have to get there. But it's actually the process of going through that is creating the positivity on the quote unquote other side. So it's like it's our struggle with darkness, in the darkness, the unknowingness, and then how that leads when we do struggle with it, and because it's that resistance in a way, that we are actually creating the positivity out of that struggle. So like there's this saying that, like the healing is within the wound, that the wound will heal us. So it's our willingness to face, to confront, to be with the struggle, and to open ourselves up to what that struggle itself is teaching. And then that is how the darkness can lead to the light. I love that about the cyclic. I haven't ever heard that about the cyclical thing between the modes, but it is beautiful. And because nothing is separated, everything belongs. So it's everything has its place, and since everything is embedded within this loving nature, within love, then everything is there to support that, if we allow it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Wow, so much to be taken out of just a few extractions from the text, right? It just demonstrates by itself how much can evolve, how much there is room for growth and expansion and all these. Yeah, I'm thoroughly appreciating these insights. It's really, really wonderful. Yeah. The tunnel thing, this tunnel idea of being on the other side, I guess there's a sense of it being easy like that, right? And that it's a bit hands off, and that things are laid out for me, and I don't have to really tackle the darkness myself or
transform. I don't have to change.
Yeah. And that I mean, this is hinted at very much in this section of this chapter, the transformation, because this is what the cycle is. It's like a cycle of transformation that we're talking about in various ways, through Kali Yuga or in our darker sides or shadow work on this sort of thing, right? But it's all this like transformation, but ever evolving transformation. It's a fascinating process, right? I think I see it having children, but of course we all see it in ourselves. If you get the real flash of the moment of a moment in the past, and looking at not just the physical bodily transformations, but how much depth of transformation is there even in our one lifetime, what to speak of something that is eternal and boundless. It's pretty mind-blowing. So much room. There's no ceiling on this one.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's kind of like, sticking with the old patterns of like thinking the externals should change, and not so much that like, something within us. So with the tunnel analogy, it's like, yeah, you're not thinking about the transformation, but just that you have to get there just as you are. Only the externals should change. That's where it is, But yeah, when we have this awakening, we realize, oh, it's not the externals, it's our perspective, like, it's our internal world that needs changing. So yeah.
And it goes back to the very, very beginning of this: washing dishes, peeling potatoes, cleaning the house, doing the laundry. It's not necessarily those external things that need to change, but how much can I transform within those things? How much can I move closer to being present, to entering the flow of becoming without the externals actually changing. And I remember, it just came to mind now, when Maharaj was visiting with Father Richard, and he gave him this plaque that's in a frame that Thomas Merton had in his room. So this is a remnant from from Thomas Merton that
Whom gave to whom? Sorry,
Father Richard
he
gave to
gave to.
Padmanabha Maharaj.
Okay, wow.
So it says something like, sit in your cell as if it were paradise.
Wow.
So
Good.
that very much speaks to, it's not about the externals. So how can we wash those dishes as if this was the greatest offering of our own heart on the altar? You know, how can whatever it is that I'm doing, how can this be an offering of myself to others, to the world, to my God?
Yeah, there's the boundless evolution there, because there is an end to all other things, but there isn't to the amount we can be present and put more in, and the profound intentionality of good, of loving regard, right? That's got no end.
Yeah, no fixed maximum there.
No fixed maximum. Yeah.
Yeah, could be washing dishes for eternity.
Well,
We're
and
really selling this one.
And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that he could be making ghee lamps for eternity. So that's like not a really, there's not so much going on there with making a twisting some cotton to make a ghee lamp. So what's happening on the inside? What's going on in his internal world? How much richness and aliveness is there where he can be completely satisfied and still drawn into participating more and more by an apparent simple motion, you know.
What a wonderful meditation. Yeah, just to envision that. Yeah, or try it for ourselves even. I have a newfound enthusiasm to go and wash some dishes.
Wow,
Yes.
isn't it so beautiful to me? Like it seems like we start with like expecting a lot of external activities. We want to do so many different things to keep ourselves busy and alive. And as we grow, like as we mature, then we need very simple, like even one activity, like maybe even gazing. So much, or like an example of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, just making ghee wicks. Just a simple activity is enough to have like a super rich, alive inner world.
Yeah, that is so wonderful. Yeah, so wonderful. Yeah, I think, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Bhakti.
Well, I was just going to say, and how, like you said, Swetadweep, how often, if our inner world is not alive, how we do kind of create chaos outside of us, or are constantly busy externally, because there is a feeling of emptiness inside, and that motivates us to fill that emptiness with things, with stuff, with action. But when there is a fullness inside, then, I mean, we can still be very busy, or we can still sit and gaze at whatever comes our way. But it's out of a fullness, as out compared to out of an emptiness.
Well, I feel like I'm just getting to sit on this beautiful conversation, actually. This is so wonderful, actually. Really, really loving hearing your insights. And it's quite dynamic having it in a three-way form as well. How many new perspectives, and how it's like between us, we're throwing the ball and throwing it ever higher and more. And it's like a wonderful divine game or something. That's really lovely. Yeah.
It's volleyball.
Yeah. Divine volleyball.
All right. We are approaching the top of the hour for our conversation. So I'm wondering if there's anything that either of you really want to bring forward before we do bring today's conversation to a close, which hopefully will simply be an initiation of other conversations coming from it. But I'm wondering if there's something that you would like to bring out, Rati, Rupa, from this section.
Yeah, there were many points. I did note that it was quite interesting. Even one section of one chapter is so full of points that, and although they flow together and they're joined together, each one of those could actually consume an entire section or chapter of its own. So there was so much to be extracted there. And I'm certainly feeling, as I'm reading through the book, it really is like an endless journey into the idea of this alone, and how much this is food for our growth. Really, really amazing. And yeah, I could imagine reading this many times over and going into one of these, the cycle of uplifting, of continually uplifting ourselves. Yeah, I would say, I mean, a few other points that were really, just briefly, were wonderful, and I found quite meditative. And even though we're asked at the end of each section to pause and reflect and take note for ourselves, and this is a wonderful thing. I find even within the section I'm already doing that, just stopping and okay. And one such point was this idea of boundless growth, and I feel we've already touched on this in many ways, and that it's not going in a single direction, it's going in multiple directions, and almost it's this way and it's not that way. And often we talk about Cupid's arrow, like a straight to the heart, but actually it's more like an explosion or something. Really look at all the directions, even just in this short time we've been discussing how many ways the conversation has flowed, and the ideas and the outpourings and the mutual building and development of these ideas. Look at this, we've just only gone in one of these possible directions here. It's pretty exciting to consider that it's boundless. There isn't this a fixed maximum, as you're saying. There is no, or a single way of thinking about it or doing it either, because that's, to me, what boundless implies, is that it's not restricted or limited to, it's got to look like this as well. That it shows and in one sense, a lot of mercy and compassion on the part of the Lord, that there is so much for us. And we talk about mercy, and sometimes I find for myself, I hear the word and you have your literal definition of it comes to mind straight away, but again you start to explore the idea and really sit in what the mercy means. And this, I'm finding this exploration as a form of mercy, that it's like jumping into a pool full of nectar and swimming around and drinking it up, like they do on cartoons, and they spill it out of mouth, and fountains and all this sort of thing, and that it's all there in this way of this continual relish of what even just mercy is, and what love could be. And we're only in the first chapter, what to speak of what's coming. So I feel very excited personally. This is really, really super uplifting, and so refreshing to have this light on Bhakti and God, and that it's like you're saying, you can look and there's no limit to the beauty in which we might see. I'm feeling very grateful for our discussion, and so grateful to Maharaj for putting that all together. And I had that thought even already in reading the first chapter. There's a lot of ideas there. And when I read Radical Personalism, wow, this is a lot of ideas. So many. How do you capture them? Like, how do you have like a butterfly net and you just have to constantly grouse those ideas and pull them in and put them down. But it's, yeah, feel exceptionally grateful there to enrich for my own enrichment, for all of our enrichment.
Yeah, like I was also thinking when this book came out, Evolution and Divine Love, I was thinking, oh, but we could be reading Radical Personalism again and again. There is so much more to keep exploring. And then there is this new book, and there is so much more in this too, and want to keep reading this as well. And here it really feels like, oh, I wish I had many eyes. Like Rupa Goswami would say, like I want like 1,000 eyes and 1,000 ears to experience, like relish beauty of Krishna. So the beauty of Krishna is like given to us, like we see it in the pages of these books, which we want to like read and explore more. But we feel so limited, isn't it?
It's so nice. And although we have that regret or that sorrow that of our own limitation and an inability to soak it all in at the same time, it's just such so refreshing that this overall direction. I know I already said that, but I'll say it again because it truly is really refreshing.
And that so much speaks to this topic also about satiation, about satisfaction and divine dissatisfaction. It's like it's so relishable and satisfying and tasty and nourishing and oh my gosh. And then we want more. Okay. But so much so that we desire more
unlimited eyes,
faculties, unlimited. I want more, at one point, I don't want a body at all. And now I want so much of a body so that I can appreciate what is here, what is actually here. Like, wow, what are we being invited into? I have no idea.
Wow, that's a huge paradigm shift from going from I don't want a body at all to I want so much body.
And again, the difference between it's not out of lack, but out of fullness. Yeah. What a paradox.
Yeah. And I'm very also grateful to both of you too for churning it, continuing the movement, and keep drawing and extracting more out of it. It's actually a really amazing savor to be doing, because I might have skimmed through, I might not have dived as deeply. And I think when we're doing it together in connection, and how much we've bounced off each other when we come together like this, it's like we can take each other deeper and deeper in new directions and boundless directions. Because I know this for myself, as I tend to go in particular thought processes and we just all have our own framing based on sanskaras and what have you. But then you add, it's like Bhakti Rasa and then Sweta Dweep as well. We've taken Rati Rupa's limitation, we've grown that, and then we've grown that, and now we've almost got panoramic vision of this going on here. So it's this churning of it in Sangha. It's so wonderful.
Yeah, it is a beautiful process. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Yeah, because your presence also, it went a certain way. So that's what we all get to bring. We get to bring ourselves to the conversation, and the willingness to be changed and to have our angle of vision shifted and expanded. So thank you for making that happen, Rati, Rupa, and
so much a pleasure. Yeah, I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
okay, we'll remember that. We'll bring today's conversation to a pause and leave you to think about how you can integrate these points into your life. So thank you all very much for joining us.
Take a moment to reflect on the possibility of living an enchanted life, where love unfolds at every moment. What steps can you take today to view reality with wonder, like a child filled with endless curiosity? Let these reflections guide your thoughts toward the boundless possibilities of a life immersed in perpetual love.